Okay, this is a very strange halacha, the halacha we're going to be learning now. And I'm not going to get so involved in the explanation because it's a clerical kind of an issue. A person makes Eiruv Tavshilin, so what we do is we take a cooked item and we take a baked item and we set them aside and we say with this we're starting to prepare for Shabbos on Erev Yom Tov, and with that it allows us to cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos. Okay? Why do I need 2 items? Okay? Now, this halacha which we're going to learn is going to say that theoretically, b'diavad it would be enough if you had just a cooked item. But if you just had a baked item, that's not enough. And according to some, that may not even be enough to bake. Okay? But I'll just... You know what? I don't want to burst your bubble. But if I had to ask you, what's the most important food that you could eat? I would say bread. So that means that the cooked item is secondary to the baked item. And I said the exact opposite, that the baked item is secondary to the cooked item. Okay? No, I will just tell you that when I was a little kid, I know somebody that he went to the store and he bought a box of matzahs and a case of gefilte fish, and he put it aside for Erev Tavshilin for 5 years. And that works b'diavad. Okay? You don't even have to ever eat it. It's just that you have it. Now you don't have to say anything. You have to say the words. You have to say the words.
Every time.
Yeah, but you don't have to prepare new food. Now I will just say, and this is an important nakuda, I happen to be a shaykhid by profession. When I say Erev Tavshilin, I also say that I'm going to shech if the situation arises. And that's actually, it's brought down in the nusach to say that if you have that availability to be shachting. Erev ze oisein bepas v'tavshil. And Erev Tavshilin is done with bread and with a tavshil. V'imloi aso ela b'tavshil avad mutter. And tov kuf chof zayin. The last siman. We're coming to the end of the chelek. Okay? We didn't start on the first page, though. That's okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the tzarich le'afos u'levashel Yom Tov l'Shabbos. V'lochein oisim ha'erev mipas v'tashel me'erev Yom Tov shal smach zeh oifenu v'ashel achar kach. You prepare those malachas that you're planning to do. V'imor aso ela b'tavshel levad, d'mi'ikar hadin ein tzarich ela mitavshel levad. Umahani bein lepas bein letavshil. If you did it on a tavshil, it works for both pas and tavshil. Shekein hudas reva poiskim, el shenogu apoiskim machmir mahatzich pas v'tavshil. V'lochein b'diavad mutter if you just did it on tavshil. V'im ein tzarich le'efos b'yom tov rach levashel. And if you don't have any intention of baking at all on Yom Tov, then you don't have to make it only on a tavshil. If you're not planning on baking. Okay. Mutter le'efos u'levashel yashv shel Shabbos. Mikol mokom im niskar koydem shechoshcha tzarich lahoysi laniach gam pas. If you remembered before it became nighttime that you didn't do Eiruv with pas, you should set aside a pas also. Don't make a new bracha. Also mi pas levad. Then levashel vade lo mahani. It doesn't help for cooking. The mahani lepas lechud. There's a machlekes, and the most of the person can say that it doesn't work. Okay. Now the next halacha is very important. Shir tavshil zeh kazayis. How big does the tavshil have to be? It has to be a kazayis. Bein la'echad, bein la'alofim. Whether for one person or for 1,000. Ben b'tchilosoi, ben b'soifoi. Whether you have that amount when you set aside the Eiruv, or whether that amount is left on Shabbos. You know, it's theoretically, if a person made Eiruv Tavshilin, and then the dog came and ate it, then you cannot rely on it, because you don't have something there that was prepared beforehand. Okay? V'yesh matzichim l'chatchila bepas kebeitza. V'chein noagim l'chatchila, that your pas should be a kebeitza. I'm going to share with you a miscellaneous halacha. On Shabbos, a person makes lechem mishnah. We learned this recently on Friday night, that your lechem mishnah has to be a shalem. How big does your lechem mishnah have to be? And according to some, it doesn't have to be a kazayis either. It can be smaller than kazayis. That means that you could theoretically use a rogala. You know, so you had a roll that size, according to many poskim. Now here, that's a subject of what's called a shir for lechem mishnah. The shir for Erev Tavshilin is a bigger shir. A shir of a kebeitza is the shir of what's called a person is a kviyas suda. Now, even though eating, it's called you ate if you had a kazayas, but a kebeitza is a shir of a suda. Okay? All right. Well more. I'm willing to say that a kazayas, if you had something round this size, that's already a kazayas. It's twice that size, right? Right. So that's your regular roll has way more than that. Unless you're some kind of a brisker, you're not the simple way to measure kazayas in Yerushalayim used to be if it's the size of a matchbox. Yeah, that's only one size matchbox. Okay, now they have these ones, these massive, for dynamite, they have special matchboxes. But that's the size of a kazayas. So 2 matchboxes, how much is that? That's not very much. Okay, your regular roll has more, and I'm just going to share with you this idea of you don't have to have a kazayas of flour. It has to be that after it's baked, even after the volume. Now, we're speaking about things that have regular air spaces. If you have something like, have air kichel that has these big balloons inside of them, we're not talking about that. We're talking about regular bread, so that's for sure the case. Okay. A square matzah? A shi matzah what? Well over the size. Okay. Now, I'll just share with you, since Erev Tavshilin is a D'Rabbanan, you don't have to be machmar on the chazan shir. Okay. Now, the next halacha is extremely important. Tzarich sheyeh tavshil zeh davar shel roi lelafes bayis hapas lafuch kedaisa. It has to be something that people eat together with bread, as opposed to things which are a meal in their own right, not eaten with bread. This is a very important halacha, and this includes bread, fish, meat, most of the things that people eat, but the salad, I'm not really sure. I think it will include it, but your salad is not cooked, right? If you have cooked salad, don't serve me any. Okay? What? Matbucha. Yeah, matbucha. I guess you cook it, right? How do you make it? I think you cook it. Yeah. It's not just smashed.
That would be a turkey. T-R-K-I. We have a different red salad that's not.
Okay. All right. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, Kigom basar v'dagim u'beitzim v'shar mini liftadim u'v'shalim shedak v'lavsam v'sapas. U'mariel hayomaniach basar al teller v'lo al galuska mishum miyas. You would put it on a nice clean plate, so it shouldn't be miyas. V'mlokach lechem shalem hayolokech ois achakach l'lechem mishnah. and if he took a sholem to make Erev Tavshilin, he used it for lechem Mishnah Berurah Shlishis. Why? The kivan nisavid bei mitzvah chada, nisavid bei mitzvah achrina. And we do this, we have this many times that we use things from a mitzvah for something else. Now, fuke daisa, dainu rifus is some kind of porridge. Shel sa'irin shekarim gergelach. Shehu darken shel b'nei l'lavas bemes hapas, ala oichlin oisam ba'atzman, kedei lizboa kemo pas. You ate it, and that filled you up just like bread. And you didn't eat it with bread. Even places that they use this together with bread, that doesn't count. Next thing, the sharmine kitnias, other kinds of beans, and I would say cholent, right? I'd just like to make a statement about cholent. There are those who do and there are those who don't. I would just make a following statement. Until 20 years ago, cholent was a Shabbos food that was eaten on Shabbos. Recently, cholent became a food that's eaten on Wednesday and Thursday, and it has a whole different... Okay, so I think they should prepare your Chodeidi for next Shabbos, okay? Okay, all right. Now that's the halacha of this. The next halacha is sifhei, also very important. Tavshil zeh sha'amru afilu tzli. It doesn't have to be cooked. You know, there are times, I think the time of the year that's the most complicated is Leil HaSeder. What do you eat Leil HaSeder? You're not allowed to eat something with... No, you don't eat the Zohar Leil HaSeder. You have it on the Korah, but you don't eat it Leil HaSeder. The Leil HaSeder, you're not supposed to eat something which could be tzli. And therefore, there are all different kinds of things that people eat Leil HaSeder for their main course that they shouldn't have a problem with this minig, okay, of not eating tzli. Bafilu tzli, it could be, doesn't have to be cooked, it could be tzli. Afilu shalok means overcooked. There are certain kinds of foods that you do overcooking. Afilu kavush, even if it was kavush, or mu'ushon, or it's smoked. Okay, all of these things that went through a kind of a preparation. When we finish the Mishnah Berurah, you'll ask that question again, and you'll see that's not so simple. Okay? V'afilu minim dogim ketanim shadichosam b'mayim chavim ha'adachosam zeh b'shulam achila. This is what's called the Hilchos Shabbos, kuzes finus, which you would, they're like little sardines that you would rinse them off in hot water, and that would prepare them. And you can use cooked apples, all kinds of cooked things, even though they're not the typical tafshil that you would call a tafshil.
Just wondering, Rob, it's a bit of a tangent, but as far as our Tavshilin is concerned, what on earth could they have used to the midbar? Because they couldn't keep the man over. Could they go to man and leave it overnight?
No, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm willing to say that they probably didn't have to make an Erev Tavshilin. But I don't know if they had to cook. You know, what did they have to do? You could eat your mun raw, right?
You said you cooked it in a brush, you said you cooked it in this and that.
You could do it. You could cook it, but I don't know if you had to. You didn't have to. You have to do anything with it. Now, what would be with halachas neiros? So we'll learn about halachas neiros in a minute.
So when the Rav said reducing this with slave, it was to say that even if, let's say, in Chutzlar's Pesach was Thursday and Friday, and you can't have the tzli on Pesach because then still the person could use something tzli.
Yeah, for Erev Tavshilin, correct. Okay. Tzli, dafka tzli mamish. Avo moliach. Now there's a halacha in your day, it says, kavish k'mavushol, umaliach kitzli. So, but maliach means salted foods, and that is not pickled. Right? There's things that you prepare them by salting them, and maliach doesn't work because that's not called a process. That's enough. It's called that it's hot like tzli. It's worse. It's less affecting the food than pickling. You can't use herring. And it went through this pickling process. Now here is where I was talking to my friend over here. If you had it pickled in brine, so if you just pickle, it depends how you did the pickling. If it sat in it, or it just was salted, and that was the process. Right. No, I think that's not true. I would just like to share with you a little bit of an understanding. When I take a pickle and I eat it, the inside and the outside taste exactly the same. And to make matters worse, when I eat a half sour, it also tastes the same, the inside and the outside. Right? This is just like you could have your steak rare or well done. It's a process that is happening, and it's a question at what point in the process you're stopping. But it's something which affects the whole item all the way through. The pickling gives a flavor to the pickle the whole way through. That's not like when you salt something, it doesn't necessarily affect everything that's inside. Now I'm just going to share with you another miscellaneous halacha, which is fascinating. I gave us over in a shir just recently. I asked the people in the shir the following question. What is deep frying? I didn't ask you how you do it. What are you doing? Okay, obviously if I'm asking the question, I don't think that as simple. Okay, I don't think that's right, and I don't think what he said is right.
I've heard about baking. When people talk about sufganiyot in the halachas sharing, talk about it being potentially baked.
Okay. What happens, I'm going to explain to you something, what you all know, but you never thought about what it means. When let's say, use sufganiyot, and I put them in the oil, and the oil isn't hot enough, what happens to the sufganiyah? It sinks to the bottom, and it never rises, right? And when it comes out, it's drenched in oil. Okay? You people know. Okay? Well, the way that deep frying works is that the oil is very, very hot, and it gets a crust on it immediately, and that crust acts as a barrier so that more oil can't seep in, and theoretically, it gets like baked on the inside. Okay? That's exactly what happens. And therefore, there's a machlekes if that's called bishul or called afiyah. Because you basically are baking it on the inside. You cook the crust, and the inside is baked. And that's why there's in Hilchos Shabbos, this is a very negea halacha. And it's just that understanding of what you're doing. People do things. I'm sure all of you know how to deep fry, but what you're doing, I don't think most people are aware of what you. The question is if it's afir achar bishul or bishul achar afir. If you have croutons or something that was right, and now you want to put it into your soup, can you do that? Okay, that's like one of the applications of this idea. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to read the last Mishnah Berurah over here. Tapuchim uvushalim. Who adin that you're allowed to use it? Calls that dafkim dech bois hamakom ulavas bemes apas. And this is what the Magen Avraham says. Now, I'm not sure about nowadays if people eat baked apples, it's I will just tell you Did you ever hear of apple kugel? Okay, that's about as far as you've got. Okay. Okay, but there, this you have to know. Otzalon, Bahainu Afilu Maluchim Etchil, the Ruim Hoya Lecho Chaim, Ein Tzichem Bishul, Hava Amina Doi Nechsha Bishul, Klum, Kamash V'lo De'abusihi, Gam Kein Tapuchim U'Shalim, After Ochon Chaim. The halacha of Erev Tavshilin, let's say I made tzimis, okay? That's like a nice Jewish food. And that is a cooked item, and you can use it for Erev Tavshilin 100%. I would like to share with you, Americans, that us Americans know that you could eat carrots raw. Our great-grandparents who lived in Europe were not aware of the fact that you could eat carrots raw. Okay? Because it was only eaten cooked. And it was considered Michael Behema if it was raw. Now, the question is, in Hilchos Shabbos, the question is, Agabi this, if that's called that you did something to it when you cooked it, because it was edible beforehand. So I didn't necessarily improve it by cooking it because it was edible before and edible now. And the answer to that question is it's still called cooking it because it got call it a new flavor, a new composition when you cooked it. That's I just say no one will say that a baked apple and a fresh apple taste the same, right? It's two different foods, right? I would say it's almost true with potatoes. Mashed potatoes and French fries, are they related? Very distantly, even though they come from the same potato. Okay. Okay. Vov. Soymech me'erev yontif afilu what? How do you make potato chips? There are different ways to make potato chips. I don't think that most of them are fried. Nowadays, it's very popular that potato chips are all baked. Yeah. Do you think that they're fried Pringles? Like,
What? Pringles?
Yeah. Okay. You don't think they come from potatoes, I understand, but... Okay. Saimech me'erev yantif al filo al adoshim shebeshuli akedera. I don't have to cook something to make an erev tavshilin on it. I could use leftovers, and they can be the dregs of food that I'm using for something else. And I could use those dregs, if they have a kazayas, I could use them for erev tavshilin. V'chein al shamnumis shenidbak b'sakin gorirov v'ushiyeba kazayas. I can scrape off, my knife that I cut my meat, and I could use that for.
It still has to be food that you wouldn't eat. Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand your question. I would ask you a question. What about the leftovers on their plate?
Usually, if you're stuck.
Okay, I'm just saying the food that's left on the plate, there's nothing wrong with it. You don't eat it because you don't want it, right? The food that's on the bottom of the pot is edible. It's on the knife is also edible.
Edible it is, but most people won't eat it.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. It tastes exactly the same as everything else.
You're cutting brownies. Your knife was coated in chocolate for the brownies. You're cutting like it.
So like the crumbs on the bottom of the pan. If it would be steak, and after my barbecue, I scratched you off the leftovers of my hot dog, and I helped you.
Okay, but that's obviously we're talking about that there's something there, right?
Yeah,
if there's nothing there, then it's not a question. Okay. Right. Okay.
So we could throw it, supposing that every Pesach fell on the front. Pesach, after Pesach, yeah, no, Shabbos was before
Thursday,
Pesach.
Friday.
Yeah, Shabbos before Pesach. could a person that has that minhag not to eat kebab, could use kebab to his Erev Tavshilin?
Something wrong with your question. You're not allowed to eat gebrachs on Chalamoid. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I mean, say the first day of Pesach.
No, it's Erev Pesach fell out on Friday.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so you can eat it technically on Friday still.
No, because you have to have it left over. Your Eiruv has to be around when you're cooking.
No, when I cook it on Friday, it's
Potentially.
around.
Yeah.
Potentially for the 8th day, if the 8th day fell.
You don't cook on Shabbos.
You cook it on Erev Shabbos.
So when Erev Pesach is Shabbos, then you don't make it Erev Tavshilin. You have it backwards.
Oh,
Right? It could only happen, this question, on Shmini Shel Pesach. And now we already discussed it about the making with kidneys. There's a big machlokes about that if you can make with kidneys.
Same thing.
Yeah, that's a machlokes, Achronim. Chazon Ish and Sefer discusses it. The last piece in Hilchos Muksa. All right. Now, the next halacha, again, all these halachas are very important. Zion. Mitzvah al kol adam la'arev. It's a mitzvah for everybody to make an Erev Tavshilin. Mitzvah al gadol la'ir la'arev al kol b'nei iroi. And it's an obligation on the Rav to make an Erev Tavshilin for everybody, kedei sheyismechu alav, in order that they can rely on him. Umi sheshachach o nenas, o sheiniach Eiruv v'avad, a person made an Eiruv and it got lost, or if it got eaten up. Aval misha efshel la'arev v'lo Eiruv, ela sherotza lismach alu shegadol la'ir, nikra poshev ve'enu yitzabay. If you decided that you're just lazy and I'll be samech on him, it doesn't work. But a person who made an Eiruv and it got lost or stolen, lost in the mail, wherever, then he can rely on the Gadol Ha'ir's Eiruv in order to eat, in order to cook. Now, just on this halacha, there's a lot of important nekudas that have to be understood. Okay, let's first see the Mishnah Berurah. So, first question: is there really a mitzvah to make an Erev Tavshilin?
I mean, it says so.
Okay.
Avoid Avera.
Okay, I will just share with you. Rav Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva about this, and he is mochiach. There is absolutely no mitzvah. It's if you do it, maybe you're makayim a mitzvah, and maybe you should do it. And he has all kinds of rayas to this concept. This is a fascinating thing. We're speaking about a person who is going to have to prepare for Yom Tov, so he has this obligation to make an Eiruv. In other words, the Shulchan Aruch is speaking about normal situations. I want to give you an example. You have a bacher that's going to somebody's house for Yom Tov. So he's probably not going to be cooking, and he's not going to be lighting candles. Should he make an Erev Tavshilin? What? What did we just learn? What are the words we just said? Mitzvah al kol adam la'arev.
Maybe it means on every house.
Okay? Mitzvah al kol bayis la'arev, right? Why didn't it say that?
Well,
It's not a mitzvah. Why do we make a bracha?
Okay. There are many things which I'm just going to share this with you. A lady who goes to the mikveh, it's not clear that she's makayim a mitzvah. There's no mitzvah for a person that's tamei to go to the mikveh. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that one doesn't make a bracha on it. According to many, there's no chiyuv for a person to shecht an animal and still make a bracha on it. Okay, not all things have to be a mitzvah for us to even make the bracha Asher Kedushanim and mitzvahs and tzivanu on them. This is a very well discussed subject in the Achronim. But if you're doing it, that doesn't mean that you're not makayim something, right? That's the answer to the question in short. Okay.
The other perspective is this is always like this, is run by the Rav and town, and then the individual did it, or other people following it.
I think what happens now is what always happened. Everybody's supposed to make an Erev Tavshilin, and the person who is in a absurd situation, he relies on the Rav. And that's what was, and I think that's still what is. I don't think that has changed much. Okay?
I'm confused by what the Rav said about that even if it's not a mitzvah, sometimes you can make a block on it. Because where does this fit in with that well-known idea that the suffix block is the correct? It's not the suffix block in this case.
Oh. What's the suffix?
The suffix is what we need. Nobody should make a block on this.
No. There's two different subjects. There's a subject when you have to do something, and the question is if you have to make a bracha. And then there's a question sometimes, do you have to do something? Let's speak about a simpler case. I could eat fish, or I could eat chicken. If I eat fish, I just bop it over the head, and then eat it, right? If I eat chicken, I have to shecht it. So, why do you say Safek Brachas L'Hakel?
There's no suffix which you need to meet a bracha, is there?
No.
Right, well, that's...
If you're making an Erev Tavshilin, it also needs a bracha. The question was, do you need to make Erev Tavshilin?
Even if you don't use it, it's not going to be bracha.
Now, if you're not going to use it, then that was a question. Maybe you shouldn't make it. But
once you're making it...
Right. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So the Mishnah Berurah. Mitzal kol gadol. Chemotzinu b'shasha kama gedoli amaroim hoim medaktikim b'zeh. Misha shokach. Kol zeh b'pam rishon. You can rely on the gadol ear pam rishon. Aval im regel sheni shokach od pam. If you forgot 2 regalim in a row, then you consider pasheya. Shenikar she'eno chored lidvar mitzvah. You want to know what the word choredi means? This is the source. You're not. How would you translate this?
You don't care about it.
No. You don't tremble. Chored lidvar mitzvah. That's what it means. A person who, if you're not, theoretically, the Haredi fellow is a fellow that's super medactic because he has to get it right. And the guy who's not Haredi is not so worried about getting it exactly right. Yes, that was specific. That I already discussed that. Okay. Now, even we said a person who made Erev Tavshilin, his Erev Tavshilin got lost, he could rely on the Rav. What's the chiddush of that? We don't say since you did it by yourself, you meant to exclude that you don't want to be yaitz with the Erev Tavshilin of the Rav. You just wanted to do it by yourself. So if yourself doesn't work, then you can rely on his. Somebody thought you could rely on the gadol ear lechatchila, then you could rely on it. But a person who was able to and he didn't do it, nikra pasheya. The gezerah of Chazal was everybody should do themselves. But today, sheyeh zocher she'em yonto l'shabbos also l'vasham l'kol she'kem yonto l'chol. Miu love dafka hu ba'atzma, but hu adin in man shliach nami. It helps a shliach the shlush kol shalom kamoisay. V'lo ba'al lafuke Eiruv shel gadol shemechin tavshilo ve'eno nimlach behem b'shas asiyasay. He's not doing it as shlichus. Ela modia lehem b'yom tov shas Eiruv v'yicholim nismach alav. Eno yotzabo she'en chacham mesakne Eiruv l'mi she'en yochol lasos ba'atzo b'satzo. A person who's lazy, we don't worry about them. V'da The Habi Poiskin Cholkim al Zeveli who Yochel Kol Adam Lismach Lechavchil Eiruv Gadol Shel Yir. Af Hagdoyle Mechavne Beiruvim Lahakles Chol Adam Boifen Zeh. Ve'eze She'enu Yoyte Avuram Zeh Shekol Pam Oisav Atzmon Bein Roitz Lismach Eiruv Shel Gadol Yir V'achach Chor Sheshalkach. Then you're allowed to do it. Actually, you have the Shmuel Poiskin Elu Lahakol B'Shum Simchas Yontif, and you can rely on the Gadol Ha'ir. Okay? This is a very common thing about people forgetting. It happens all the time, and it's important that we should be chored for the halacha and not forget to make Erev Tavshilin. Okay, we'll stop over here.